Hello crafty friends, thank you for joining me back on my YouTube channel for a special Snarky blog hop with Justine's Hovey's 12 Days of Christmas. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this fun shaker card with a little bit of surprise snark on the inside. So sit back and enjoy watching me create this for you. And at the end I'll include all of the links to the products used in this video. So I've used a wide variety of different materials in order to create this special card. Starting with a piece of white Yupo paper, I created a fun background using these Ranger alcohol inks, which have lately been making quite a comeback. And I start off by just sprinkling some of these drops all over the paper in addition to the silver mixative, so that I'll have a nice blue background when I'm finished. So I'm adding some alcohol mixatives so that I can blow around the color all over the Yupo paper. And for any spots that don't fill in the way I want, I just add some more color and alcohol blending solution and color that right up. So now I'm going to move on to the next phase, which is using some fun foam that has adhesive on the back of it, and I'm going to use this to create a layer in between the top layer and the base layer, so that I have one continuous piece to put between the shaker window and the base of the card. And to put that together, I'm using some Memento black Tuxedo ink and stamping my bold stamp twice onto this fun foam, and once I have finished that part of it, I'm going to just cut out those two pieces. I'll stack them together and create a shaker window, but if you wait just a moment, you'll see exactly what I'm doing and how I put that together. And now moving on to where I'm going to stamp the top layer. I took a piece of white cardstock and trimmed it down to about 6.5 by 4.5. And then I'm going to use Memento black Tuxedo ink again to stamp the bowl stamp towards the top middle part of this card panel. And then the next thing I'm going to do is stamp the base to the bottom of this, and then mask it off from the bowl part so I don't have an overlap for the two pieces. And then I'll just close the lid, pick that up, ink it up, and then stamp it down. Now I'm going to use an X-ACTO knife to cut out the inside edge of the bowl so that I have a window opening. I'm using a glass cutting mat because it makes the process a lot easier to do. I have used self-healing mats and found that the X-ACTO knife seemed to get stuck, so this actually is a much easier way, I find, to do this type of cutting. Next, I'm going to cut around the foam around these two stamp pieces so that I can layer the two pieces of foam on top of each other and create basically a space between the shaker window and the base card that I'm going to be building later. And that way there's plenty of room for that snow to shake around, and it makes it a lot easier to make sure I've trapped that snow because it's one continuous piece of foam. And at this point I'm going to speed this up because I'm just cutting the inside of the foam layer in order to prepare it for creating that shaker window card. Now I'm moving on to the coloring phase. Basically I did very simple coloring. I just used this blue Copic marker to color around the edges of that frame where the glass is showing up. And then when I get that part done, I'm going to get just a couple of different brown markers and do the cork base. So I have sped this up quite a bit because I didn't do anything terribly complicated at all regarding the color. I just laid in for the base just a lighter brown color and then went back over it with a slightly darker color and blended them together so there was a little more depth to it. The next step of the process is to take a piece of clear acetate film and I'm just putting down some ordinary double-sided adhesive tape and then applying the clear acetate to that to create my window. Next, I'm moving on to stamping on the outside of the window. So I'm placing my two stamps, and then I'm going to use some Stays-On ink in order to ink them onto the acetate. And the reason I did it this way is because I wanted to ensure that when I put in the snow to fill in that shaker window, that it would not actually cover up the two deer. So this is the reason for doing it this way. The next thing I did is take the paper that I had already coated with the Bow Bunny glitter paste and cut out 6 of those snowflakes. And next I'm moving on to creating the sentiment that's going to go on the outside of the card. I slowed down at this phase because this is a 2-step process. So I'm using some vellum paper here, which I treated first with an anti-static powder tool. And then I'm preparing the stamp so that I can stamp exactly the lines of the stamp that I want to do. Starting with the very top line, I masked off the second line with Post-it tape, added Versamark, and then stamped that part down. And in order to line up the rest of it, I moved the vellum down a little bit so that I'd have room in order to get that second line on the stamp in the right spot. So before moving on to that part, I made sure to thoroughly clean off the stamp to make sure there was absolutely no residue left from the first stamping. And then I'm going to take my time to line it up. I know it's very difficult to see on camera, but what I was doing here is ensuring that when I stamped the second line that it would be perfectly in line with the first layer. So now you see me masking off the top line as well as the bottom 2 lines so that I could stamp just that second line with Versamark and then stamp it onto the vellum. At this point I'm adding the blue embossing powder, and I'm pretty much skipping past the point where I'm showing the actual heat embossing happening. And now I'm applying some snow text to the inside of the acetate so that there's an opaque layer of white at the bottom and it looks like the deer are actually standing on some snow. And while that layer is drying, I'm going to glue on the double foam layer so that I have that space, like I described earlier, between the window and the base. So I decided to go back and add some white snow by flicking on some watered down white paint onto the blue layered panel and put that aside to dry. And while that's happening, I'm working on the inside of the card. So in order to do the second part of the sentiment, I'm masking off the top half of it. I'm inking it up with some Versafine black ink, and I'm wiping off just the word red before stamping that down on the inside of the card. Once I have done that, I'm going to come back with a red marker and actually add the red color just to the word red before I stamp it down. And then I repeated that just to make sure that the word turned out nice and bold red. To finish off the inside stamping, I added the small snowflake stamp and stamped it with some Distress Oxide in, I believe it was China Blue, but I'll have the color listed below so you can see exactly what it is that I used. And with that, the inside part of it is complete. So to put the entire thing together, I trimmed down the blue piece so that there was at least a 1/4 inch around the edges. As you can see, I'm rounding off the edges of both that blue splattered panel as well as the very top. And with all of that done, I'm now going to glue down all of the layers to my base card, which is a 5x7 top folding card. So first I glued on the blue layer, and then I'm adding the snow pieces in the center before I glue down the top panel. And now I'm gluing down the panel. I'm going to then glue down the die cut stars. snowflakes. And then I'm going to add the sentiment to finish up the card. So thank you so much for stopping by today and watching my video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for further videos. If you want more details, please be sure to look below or visit my blog. Thank you.